Hey everybody. So last week Scott started this little game where he posted up somewhere in the building and encouraged you guys to take guesses as to where he was. So I thought that was a really neat idea. So I decided this week I would show up somewhere in the building and see if you guys could guess where I am. So be sure to leave your guesses in the comments on the Facebook post. Just take a guess as to where you think I am in the church building. I also want to share with you guys a little word out of the scriptures this afternoon. So, uh, as many of you know, this is Passion Week, the week before Easter, also called Holy Week. And it's a week where we celebrate and remember a lot of really memorable moments in the life of Christ and a lot of things that happened during that last week of Christ's life. So if you'll turn with me to John chapter 13, go ahead and turn to John chapter 13. I want to look at today a moment that doesn't get as much publicity as some other moments in the life of Jesus. So, John chapter 13, I'm going to start reading in verse 21, and I'm going to read down to verse 30. So, John chapter 13, verses 21 through 30. Jesus is right now having supper with his disciples. He said, after saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit and testified, truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me. The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at table at Jesus' side. So Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, it is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it. So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then, after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, What you are going to do quickly. Now, no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, buy what we need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So, after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. And I wanted to highlight a couple of things in this story in John chapter 13. The first thing that John is very, very intent on portraying to us is that these disciples have no idea what is going on. They have no idea what is coming. He says in verse 22, the disciples looked at one another uncertain of whom he spoke. They're not picking up what Jesus is putting down. They're not following Jesus on what he's saying. And then even after Jesus tells them who it is who will betray him, John says in verse 28, now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. These disciples are just completely clueless. They have no idea what's coming. But at the same time, John shows us that Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen. Jesus knew exactly what the future held for him. He said at the very beginning that one of them would betray him. He knew exactly who that one was. Luke portrays this same effect differently when he talks about how Jesus set his face to go to Jerusalem. Jesus knew far, far, far before he ever reached the cross that he would have to endure the cross. Jesus knew long before that day came that he would have to suffer and die on Calvary's cross for the sins of many. He would have to bear God's wrath for others. And so, Jesus, and I love this, Jesus, knowing that he's about to face the most agonizing, the most terrible, the most intense suffering that will ever be experienced, he doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't try to get out of it. Instead, he dips this morsel of bread into the cup. He gives it to Judas. He gives it to the one who will betray him. He gives it to the one that he's become close friends with, the one that is his disciple, the one that he's poured into, the one who he loves, the one who will betray him tonight. He gives this morsel of bread to him, and he looks at him and he says, what you are going to do quickly. Jesus looks into the face of Judas and says, he says almost, hurry up, do it quickly. Jesus is not trembling in fear. He is not agonizing over this. No, we see here in John chapter 13 a portrait of Jesus bravely staring an agonizing death in the face and saying, what you're going to do quickly. And that is an incredible courage. That is an incredible courage in the face of danger, in the face of agony, in the face of knowing what's coming. Maybe a lot of us feel like we're more in the boat with the disciples, not having any idea what the future holds, not having any idea what's going to happen to us. But we can rest in the fact that Jesus knows what's coming. Jesus knows the future. And that agony, that suffering that Jesus endured, 3 days after that, he rose from the grave. He is now seated at the right hand of the Father, and he is with us in our agonies and our sufferings. He is with us in everything. So even in the times when we look to the future and all we can see is agony and suffering, Jesus is with us. Jesus is here with us. And when we look into the future and we don't know at all what the future holds, Jesus is still with us. So, thank you guys. I hope some of you get this right. I hope some of you know where I am. And I look forward to seeing you all in person sometime soon. Bye.